Police dispatchers receive thousands of similar calls annually, requiring rapid assessment protocols. Standard procedure involves verifying the caller's location while keeping them on the line for safety. Whispering during such calls often indicates the caller believes an intruder is nearby. This type of emergency triggers a multi-unit response to ensure officer safety and containment. Response times vary by jurisdiction, but typically aim for under 10 minutes in urban areas. Initial units often stage nearby to coordinate before approaching the reported address. Such situations account for a significant percentage of police emergency responses. The psychological stress on both callers and responders during these events is well documented. Police would arrive to find the residence completely empty, with all doors and windows secured from the inside. No signs of forced entry were ever documented, eliminating the possibility of a conventional break-in. This pattern repeated dozens of times over an extended period, each call following the same baffling sequence. The repeated false alarms consumed significant police resources, diverting them from other emergencies. Investigators were left with a core contradiction: persistent reports of an intruder with no physical evidence of one. Such cases are rare but documented, where a single location generates a high volume of unfounded emergency calls. The mystery defied standard investigative procedures, which rely on finding corroborating physical proof. This created an operational puzzle for law enforcement, balancing public concern with the absence of verifiable threats. These phantom phone call incidents typically involve repeated emergency calls from a single location reporting urgent threats. Upon arrival, officers find no evidence of a caller or the reported emergency situation. The calls often describe life-threatening scenarios like intruders, assaults, or medical emergencies. This pattern distinguishes them from simple prank calls or system malfunctions. Investigators must rule out technical explanations like crossed wires or automated dialing errors. Similar cases have been documented, where the source remains unidentified despite thorough checks. The persistence and specificity of the reports create significant investigative challenges. These incidents consume police resources and raise questions about communication system vulnerabilities. This case involved a suburban residence, not a single isolated incident, but a pattern that developed over an extended period. The activity escalated in frequency across weeks or months, indicating a deliberate and sustained campaign rather than a one-time event. What began as what might have been perceived as nuisance calls evolved into something far more complex and demanding. The situation required significant resources from law enforcement agencies, moving beyond routine complaint handling. Investigators faced a sustained puzzle that consumed considerable time and investigative effort to unravel. Such prolonged harassment cases often follow patterns of escalation, with perpetrators testing boundaries over time. The resource-intensive nature suggests multiple agencies may have been involved, coordinating responses to the developing situation. This type of sustained campaign represents a distinct category of criminal behavior, separate from isolated incidents. The emergency calls followed a distinct and alarming pattern that investigators quickly recognized. These calls typically reported an intruder inside the home, creating immediate urgency for law enforcement response. The callers often whispered or spoke in hushed, terrified tones, suggesting they were hiding from a perceived threat. This whispering pattern is consistent with genuine fear responses documented in emergency call research. The calls would then disconnect abruptly, leaving responders with limited information and no way to call back. This pattern of disconnected calls created significant challenges for emergency services trying to locate the source. Similar patterns have been documented in other emergency call cases where callers fear being discovered. The consistency of these calls across multiple incidents suggested a deliberate methodology rather than random events. Each call triggered a high-priority police response, indicating the severity with which these reports were treated. This classification meant units were dispatched immediately, prioritizing these incidents over routine calls. Upon arrival, officers conducted thorough, methodical searches of the property. These searches were standard procedure for such reports, designed to locate any intruder or threat. Every time, they found the home secured. All doors were locked from the inside. Windows were also intact, with no broken glass or evidence of tampering. There were no signs of forced entry on any point of access. This consistent finding, a secure perimeter with no breach, created a central puzzle for investigators. The absence of individuals inside the property and the lack of evidence for a struggle or intrusion created a perplexing investigative void. Even the homeowners, when present, reported confusion that mirrored the initial police assessment, suggesting no clear internal explanation. This led investigators to shift focus from a physical crime scene to the source of the communications themselves. The technical investigation involved law enforcement collaborating with telephone technicians. Their primary step was to trace the origin of the calls, a standard procedure in harassment or threat cases. Call tracing in this era typically relied on identifying the switching exchange and line records from the telephone company. This process could determine if calls were local, long distance, or potentially originating from a payphone or other number. The goal was to move from an unexplained phenomenon to a documentable technical fact, a phone number, and a location. The investigation confirmed the calls were originating from inside the house's landline. This finding ruled out an external prankster using spoofing technology at least at the time of these specific calls. Caller ID spoofing allows external numbers to appear as local or familiar ones. But this was not the case here. The source was definitively within the home's physical wiring or connected devices. This points to a physical connection issue, a malfunctioning device, or intentional tampering on the premises. Landline systems can generate strange anomalies from crossed lines, electrical faults, or outdated equipment. The evidence shifted the focus inward, eliminating the possibility of a remote digital hoax for these particular communications. This technical verification created a concrete, physical boundary for where the calls had to originate. The frequency of the calls increased, prompting a more intensive investigation. Investigators began seriously considering the possibility of a hoax originating from within the household itself. This internal suspect theory is a common investigative pivot in cases where threats appear to originate from a known location. The operation placed a significant strain on available police resources and manpower. For the residents, life became a state of sustained psychological distress. They lived under a constant cloud of fear, suspicion, and the uncertainty of not knowing the source of the threat. This environment of pervasive anxiety is a documented psychological effect in prolonged harassment cases. The investigation's focus tightened, aiming to resolve the source of the calls and end the ordeal. This segment focuses on the significant gaps in our understanding of these events. No definitive technical cause has been publicly verified, ruling out confirmed mechanical or software failures. Similarly, there is no widely reported human confession or legal conviction directly linked to this case. This absence of closure leaves several plausible explanations unresolved. The final resolution could have been an undiagnosed technical glitch, a documented psychological episode, or an undisclosed personal situation. Available public records do not provide clarity, which is common in cases where investigations are inconclusive or details remain private. This lack of certainty defines the boundary between known facts and enduring mystery. Many true crime cases become distorted by supernatural explanations over time. This tendency often stems from a psychological need to explain the unexplainable through familiar narrative frameworks. The poltergeist label, for instance, is frequently applied to unexplained disturbances without evidence of paranormal activity. Such framing can obscure more plausible, real-world explanations that involve human behavior or environmental factors. Investigative rigor requires dismissing supernatural leaps when there is no empirical evidence to support them. This approach maintains focus on factual analysis, witness testimony, and physical evidence. Grounding a case in documented events prevents it from drifting into the realm of folklore or creepypasta. Ultimately, avoiding the paranormal trap leads to clearer understanding, even if some mysteries remain unsolved. The most productive way to analyze these events is through a practical lens. They resulted from either technical faults, human actions, or a combination of both. A common misconception suggests the calls originated from the house itself, as if it were a sentient entity. In reality, the calls came from the house's phone line, which is a physical system subject to malfunctions. Phone lines can fail due to weather damage, aging infrastructure, or internal wiring issues within a building. Human manipulation is also a possibility, as phone systems can be accessed or tampered with under certain conditions. This aligns with patterns in other documented cases where strange phone phenomena were traced to technical or human causes. Understanding these mechanisms helps demystify events that might otherwise be attributed to supernatural explanations. By focusing on verifiable factors like system failures or interference, we ground the investigation in reality. Telecommunications systems can generate phantom calls due to technical malfunctions. These glitches occur from line faults, electrical shorts, or malfunctioning equipment. The phenomenon can mimic actual dialing sequences and connection attempts. Fragmented audio transmissions may accompany these phantom calls. This is a documented technical issue rather than a supernatural occurrence. Similar malfunctions have been recorded in various communication systems worldwide. Understanding these mechanisms helps distinguish technical faults from other phenomena. Persistent, unexplained calls create a significant resource burden for emergency services. This diverts personnel and equipment from other potential crises that require immediate response. From an investigative perspective, such cases exist in a difficult space between potential explanations. They could be hoaxes, genuine technical malfunctions, or indicators of personal or medical issues within a household. Investigators must methodically eliminate physical causes before considering other possibilities. This includes checking wiring, device malfunctions, and environmental factors that could trigger calls. Only after these physical explanations are ruled out can investigators explore other avenues. This systematic approach prevents premature conclusions and ensures thorough examination. The phantom intruder phenomenon often involves misinterpretations of ordinary events. These cases highlight how technology like motion sensors can create false alarms through environmental triggers. Human psychology plays a key role, with pattern-seeking brains filling gaps in ambiguous sensory data. Investigations sometimes reach limits when evidence is insufficient or contradictory. Similar patterns appear in other unexplained phenomena where technology and perception intersect. These intersections remind us that reality can be more complex than initial appearances suggest.
If the veil stirred, subscribe and meet the next encounter.